so much. I apologize. For some reason, I thought I would start this at 5 o'clock standard time. I know Melissa was very clear, but I was a bit confused. I apologize for the delay. But nonetheless, let's jump on in here. Let's see, the slides. Are the slides up and ready? Jake, are the slides that I'm looking at the ones that I need to refer to, or is there something I need to press?
Yeah, yeah, Melissa's got those slides going. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's see, how can I advance them? So basically, I just wanted to take this opportunity to really engage with the group on maybe some feedback on how we've been using IDEA in our program. We are a program that's a College of Pharmacy accredited by the American Council of Pharmacy Education, ACPE. So you'll see that in a couple of the slides. That is our accrediting body, and every pharmacy school has to maintain accreditation by meeting certain standards. So we've been using IDEA on Howard's campus in the School of Pharmacy since about 2007. If I can recall correctly. And we continue to see positive results, and I just wanted to share a couple things with you in terms of how we use IDEA to meet our accreditation standards. And so I titled this Monitoring the Attainment of Learning Outcomes, and I think you'll see that in a second. So this is all about Standard 15. If you look at Standard 15, I actually underlined the part that really pertains to what we do largely with IDEA Center. It really speaks to the assessment and evaluation of student learning and curricular effectiveness. And specifically, every pharmacy program has to have some kind of way of ensuring that students meet desired learning outcomes. And I'll show you in a second how we've directly tied our IDEA objectives to our learning outcomes to make sure that we can show that students are making progress on these. So when you look at the standard number 15 on the prior objectives, these are the standards that are in place now. I put the second slide in here because we actually have a revised set of guidelines. They're still in draft form. They will be known as ACP Guidelines 2.06 in 2016. So if there are any other pharmacy programs on the line, you're quite familiar with Guidelines 2016. These will go into effect January 2016. And I just wanted to show you that still one of the key things is looking at teaching and learning methods. And making sure that students meet those outcomes within pharmacy programs. So what we're doing now speaks to not only the current guidelines, but also the draft that will go into effect in 2016. So this is the slide here that I worked a bit on because I wanted to make it really, really clear to you guys of why IDEA is so important to what we do in the College of Pharmacy. If you look to your left, you'll see numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 through 12, but I cut out some of them, I'll tell you why. The numbers on the slide indicate the specific IDEA objective. If you look at the numbers on the top,
I'm not able to hear you again, Daphne. Are you?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, it's just internet at which resorted. This slide in particular that you see is very important because, as I was saying, on the left you'll see the IDEA objectives. As we all know, there are 12 learning objectives that the IDEA Center uses to assess student progress on in the rating form. Across the top, what you'll see are 15 subdomains, and these are ACPE subdomains, the new standards that will go into effect in 2016. Overall, these 4 subdomains address knowledge, skills, ability, as well as attitudes. And so where you see K, that's knowledge, where you see S, that stands for skills, where you see AD, those are abilities, and where you see AT, those are attitudes. So what we've done is we've linked directly these subdomains. In other words, we used to call them outcomes, but we're calling them subdomains starting in 2016. We've linked these directly to the specific IDEA objective. And this is important because we want to continue to use reliable tools like the IDEA Center, but we also want to show that direct connection with our ACPE standards as well. So this is very important for us to make this linkage. So when we look at what we're doing as a program, it's really important for us to pay attention to Objective 1, 2, 3, 4, our most recent evaluation, our institutional summary from fall 2013, spring 2014. As you can see, there were 38 classes overall that were assessed. But when you look at the information that I present in some of the charts, you'll see that we really looked at 32 of those classes, and that's because 32 of those are required classes. So I left out the elective. So overall, we were very happy. We went back to using IDEA Online, and I'm happy to say that 100% of our courses were evaluated. So that includes required courses as well as those elective courses. So we were really happy about that. Again, a total of 38. Keep in mind, out of those 38, we only had 30, I think it was 32 that were required, but we'll see that in a second. A really good effort in terms of making sure we take a look at all those courses. This next slide simply speaks to how reliable the evidence is. As you know, ideally, we have a response rate that is at least 65% to get dependable results. So if you look at the top, we have some work to do in that area. We have a couple of classes that actually did meet the target this is a response rate within the class. So ideally, we want 100% of the students in the class to take their evaluation. We were successful in that with a couple of classes, as you can see, a couple of 100. But then you can also see some of these other classes that had 43% response, 55% response, 33%, and so on and so forth. I think a lot of programs we continue to struggle with trying to get a really good response rate without providing challenges in terms of trying to make sure we get more 100% responses from the students who take evaluation. The next slide. So here's coverage of the ideal learning objective. So in our different courses, when the coordinators had to select which objectives they wanted to focus on, as you know, you should only pick 3 to 5 as essential or important. And what I tell the coordinators to do, as they sit down to look at their results, they should ask themselves, are students learning what I want them to learn in my course? In addition, they should also be very careful to make sure that the objectives that they pick as essential and important are really the ones that you get a good response rate on. Otherwise, maybe you need to take a look at some of those objectives that you're selecting. So this slide pretty much says a lot. It says overall for the College of Pharmacy for 2013-2014, the top objectives that we selected as relevant in terms of essential or important were objectives 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9. And I listed the percent focus. As you can see, when you looked at all 38 classes, there was variant amounts of focus that you can see they're pretty significant for these, anywhere from 84% focus to 58% focus. And all of them had a rating at or above 4.0. So when one asks the question, is there progression in meeting learning objectives across the curriculum? In order to answer that question, we took a look at those objectives, and I want you to remember the slide that I showed you above that had the direct linkage between the IDEA objectives and the ACPE outcomes, those 15 subdomains. But I've actually helped you out a little bit by in each slide, I actually put which CAPE outcome that objective is linked to. So when we look at objective 1, gaining factual knowledge, you'll see that the students, overall, there's an average rating of 4.2. What we're trying to look at, and this is where I would like some feedback a little bit in the discussion, ideally what we'd like to see is from the very first class in the program, if you look towards the bottom, all the way up to that 33rd required class. In a perfect world, at least in my world, I'd like to, for the world I'd like to have, I'd like to actually see an upward line, just, constant progression as you go across the curriculum. As you can look based on this line, we're not quite there, but I want to make sure you're clear on what you're seeing. There's several classes that Objective 1 was not selected as important or essential. So when you see a big dip or a sharp decline, that's not because students are given a 0 rating. It's because those, like class number 3, class number 6, and I can go on and on, but those dips simply mean the coordinators did not select that objective.
Nope.
Can you still hear me?
Yep. Now I can.
All right. It's going in and out, but it's back now. So let's kind of go back to this. a increase from course number, and basically you're looking at the peak. So you'll see, let's say, I think that's course number 2, where it's about, I don't know, 4.3, and then go all the way over to course number 8, and it's slightly higher. Continue to go over to course number 13 and 17 and so on and so forth. So what we're trying to do, again, is show progression. In other words, from the very first course to the very last course, when you look at each of these objectives, we like to see that there's an increase in students' ratings and that they have met those objectives. And what I simply did is I went through the different objectives that we selected as important or essential. So the first one was 1, this one is objective 2. And you see that's also related to Kate 1.1. This is objective 3, which is related to Kate outcomes 3.1, and I included all those, 3.1 all the way through 3.6. Next slide, you'll see objective 4 related directly to Kate 2.1. And basically, remember when we look at those different Kate domains, we're talking about knowledge, skills, ability, as well as attitude. So these that you're looking at here are objective 4. For objective 4, those are really key in terms of what we need the pharmacy students to also focus on. I also included objective 5. I noted at the beginning that I wanted to be careful with this one. When you look at objective 5, it is tied directly to K 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. But I put this one in a gray area because, as you can recall, this was not one of the overall objectives that we put a particular amount of emphasis on. Out of all the classes, it was emphasized in 21% of the classes. So it is important. It's extremely important because it speaks directly to some of those CAPE outcomes. But I did want to highlight that we only had a 21% focus on it. That's why you see that grayed out. Objective 9, which is one of the ones that we picked as having a lot of emphasis on, 58% overall focus. Again, when you look at progression, this one gave me a little hope because as I look at the peaks, it does look like maybe you start off just below 4.5. I see a couple of times where it went a little bit above 4.5 further down the curriculum, but as you can see, we had some trouble in like those last couple of courses, so it dropped way down in the 3s or so. So again, these are issues for discussion because what we really want to show is progression across each one of those objectives. These are kind of self-explanatory. 11, again, is tied directly to those CAPE outcomes 2.1 through 2.4. That's only in 16% across the curriculum. Still had a good response rating, and I still want to include it because, again, it is important linked directly to our outcomes. And then this one is really important. So when you look at the revised standard, one of the things that they put a complete domain that addresses attitude. The whole logic behind that was because they think pharmacy schools need to not only equip students with knowledge and skills, but also train them to have the right attitude so that they can effectively get those desired patient outcomes. And so a lot of programs are going to start looking at how do they properly ensure that students are meeting that domain, that really affective domain that really speaks to attitude. And I was pleasantly surprised when I looked and I saw that it's directly linked to objective 12 of IDEA. So IDEA, acquiring an interest in learning more by asking our own questions and seeking answers. That's tied directly to those affective domains of self-awareness, leadership, innovation, and entrepreneurship, as well as professionalism. Only emphasizing 21% of our overall curriculum that has a really good response rating of 4.2. So I'm just pleased to show that we've been able to track that by this direct linkage for quite some time. And then these last couple of slides are really, it was a learning moment that as a faculty we engaged in. So remember, we picked certain objectives that we put the most emphasis on, but it was interesting when you look at what our most top-rated objectives were. So the top-rated objectives were actually objectives 1, 3, and 12. Let me quickly go back and remind you of what we had selected. So We said that we would actually put most emphasis on 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9. So that was a learning moment, and again, it speaks back to Objective 12. When we looked at 12 as being one of the higher graded objectives, what we took out of that was perhaps it suggests that we might need to expand some of our intentional focus. In other words, we've been addressing Objective 12 and hitting that very new take outcome without even doing it intentionally. We actually did it by accident, but I'm glad that it all worked out. And so what I told the faculty is, it's a good thing we have been looking at that, and now maybe we need to put more intent behind some of the activities that we put in our classes to make sure that we are training the students to have those proper attitudes so that they can deliver those desired outcomes using their skills and knowledge. So that's a quick overview. I hope I didn't jump around too much and confuse you too much, but that's pretty much how we have been able to show that we certainly have been tracking those outcomes, and we've done it by directly linking the outcomes to our idea objectives. But again, the part that we need to work on is this part in terms of if we look at one objective across all of our classes, our students increasing in terms of their attainment of those objectives. So that's the part that we're kind of really trying to focus on. And I'm going to go back to this slide because I think it's the most important slide of the whole discussion. And I'll stop there and I'll open it up for any kind of suggestions or comments of how we can continue to even improve on how we use IDEA to meet our accreditation.
Wow. Well, thank you, Daphne. First, I just thank you for the way that you presented the information. My wheels are turning in my brain about how to make suggestions to other campuses and that are asking the same question. So I really like how you laid this out and the way you described it. And then I also like the part that you're saying at the end about by looking at all of the data, you're able to take a step back and say regarding Learning Objective 12, well, here's something that's happening that we didn't even realize it, but by looking at all of the data together, that kind of rose to the top. So I really appreciate that part of it. So a little bit of housekeeping here. I know that a couple people have raised their hand during the time that Daphne was speaking, and just for technical issues, I think rather than trying to enable and turn off microphones, it would be easier to type your question in the chat box in the lower right-hand corner. And I know Daphne can see that, but I'll also be happy to read those out for the recording and then give Daphne a chance to respond to those questions as well. So Julie has a question here. Could you please explain again what CAPE refers to?
Oh, certainly. I wish I could share my screen, but I can still explain it. So first of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So ACPE, our accrediting body, they put a group together every 8 years or so, and they say they tell the group, they charge the group with pretty much coming up with learning outcomes for students in pharmacy school. So any pharmacy school across the country that wants to be accredited, they have to show that they're doing a very good job of making sure students meet specific learning outcomes. So when I talk about learning outcomes, I'm referring directly to CAPE. CAPE stands for the Center for the Advancement of Pharmaceutical Education. These standards were released in July 2013 by a group of phenomenal professors across pharmacy schools in the country. And again, they took 4 overall domains, and I'll tell you those overall domains so that I make it a little bit. Okay, so the 4 overall domains again are knowledge, skills. Knowledge, skills, attitudes, as well as abilities. When you look at it, it kind of boils down to foundational knowledge, essentials of practice, approach to practice, and then the last part is the personal and professional development. So out of those, that's where you get those 15 subdomains that are actually on the slide in front of you. So if you count them, they should add up to about 15, and those are 15 subdomains that came directly from CAPE that tell you specifically what are the learning outcomes for a pharmacy program.
I have a follow-up question as well, Daphne. So then when you're mapping the IDEA learning objectives to the CAPE outcomes, did you have a team of people on your campus that helped have that discussion? Was there anyone at CAPE that gave you some feedback on whether they agreed with your alignment? I'm curious that there could be some potential, I guess.
Like questions on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, what we did, we relied on our curriculum committee. Our curriculum committee, I think we have about 12 members on our curriculum committee, and we have members from both pharmacy practice as well as pharmaceutical sciences. We also have our head health sciences library liaison, who's a member of that committee as well. And then I serve as a member of that committee. And so our curriculum committee was charged with doing two things. First, they were charged with linking all of our courses to all of these 15 subdomains. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was linking our IDEA objectives to those domains as well. And so that was the body. We had a day-long meeting. I think we were there for about 6 hours, going through all of the course syllabi and constantly looking back at the actual CAPE document, because it can be tricky when you look at learner just by looking at the leading words. You'd be very surprised at what CAPE considers as falling up under those, as defining those. And so everybody had a copy of CAPE to make sure that we were all on the same page. And in terms of aligning them with IDEA objectives, there was some discussion at the end. We just had to come to a consensus of, okay, for the most part, which one seemed like they fit with these specific IDEA objectives. But at the end, we were very satisfied with them.
Good. Thank you for sharing that process. Does anyone else in the room have a follow-up question for Daphne or a comment that you'd like to add? And just have you type it there in the comment box in the lower right-hand corner. While we're working on that or giving people time to think about or to type out their question, we have recorded this session as well, so we can send that follow-up link to anyone who would like to have access to that. And I see Susan is typing a question here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So it looks like the question is distinguish between an essential and an important outcome. Well, I think in terms of the different coordinators, as you know, the course coordinators are the ones that actually pick out which IDEA objectives they're going to focus on in their course. And when we look at determining which ones are important or essential, we kind of pretty much determine in this course what the main thing I want to focus on. When we say essential, those are kind of the ones that we really, really want to focus on, and those that are important are also, I guess they would be second tier in terms of our objectives. But I only ask the faculty to select a maximum of 5 as important or essential. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's really important or essential. What are the objectives that you really want to pay close attention to in your course? The ones you want to pay the most attention to. If I remember correctly, I think those are the ones that we would consider essential, and the others would be considered important. And as I'm telling you that, I'm actually looking at a response form so that I can be quite sure.
And then,
basically they follow what it says on the instructions or the guidance from the IDEA forms in terms of.
okay. And I guess I have a follow-up question that I think others might have. Have you, as a group, sat down and said we're going to require faculty to select specific learning objectives because you're trying to align with CAPE standards?
Oh yeah, I can send you this document. Because remember I mentioned that 6-hour meeting?
Mm-hmm.
What we did, and we just used a good old-fashioned Excel sheet. We have a software program that we started using in the
No, not right this second.
Hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Others hear me?
So far, if I can hear you, they can hear you.
Okay, all right, gotcha. So yeah, we have a software program. We're using RX Preceptor now and RX Outcomes. And so we've mapped out all of those 15 subdomains across all of the different courses. We actually took it a step further. We created pharmacy-specific learning objectives, and we mapped those out as well. So what we did during that meeting as a group, and again, you had representatives from both departments and outside as well, we specifically went through and said, for these courses, these are the outcomes you need to focus on accomplishing. And we did it across the entire curriculum. We gave it back to the entire faculty. And we said, now that you know what we'd like for you to focus on in terms of outcomes, we provided a menu of pharmacy-specific objectives that we want you to now choose that you're going to include as you develop your course and your teaching your lecture schedule, so that we can make sure that those objectives are followed and ultimately those outcomes are met. And what we will do, and I haven't discussed this with you, Jake, maybe this is a good time to mention it.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to do in the additional questions that we can add on our idea form, we're going to include those pharmacy-specific objectives as additional questions. So then we'll not only be able to stick with our idea objectives that we've linked, now we'll also be able to specifically evaluate those pharmacy-specific objectives.
Great. And I'm happy to help however I can. Any other questions from folks in the group, or we're kind of getting towards the end of our time? And as I just wanted to highlight what Melissa said, Daphne's presentation can be downloaded by clicking the link at the top right-hand side of the screen. And then we will make sure that we send out the link to the recording as well. I do see that.
I also have something I'm going to, if this operates, I want to include this as well in case people really want to learn more about it.
Okay.
Okay. I actually sent you the link to the case document.
Okay. All right, I can see that you're adding.
Yes, there it is.
Yeah, great.
If you click on that, those are the specific outcomes, and you'll see those overall 4 domains, and then with the 14 subdomains that fall underneath it.
All right, excellent. Well, Daphne, thank you for taking time off from vacation and persevering through the internet connection problems. This has been, I've enjoyed the information a lot. I know this is very helpful, and this will be something that we'll refer back to again in the future.
Okay, anytime, and if you have any questions or anything, feel free to just
Okay, well again, thank you everyone for participating. We'll get follow-up information to you all, and just today Melissa and I were talking about another set of coffee talks that will roll out for the fall semester, so keep your eyes or your ears open for that. And we look forward to seeing you all again in another coffee talk. And I'll put in a plug now that in February we have our idea workshop, which is more of what you're seeing here, opportunity to interact with one another and talk face to face about the kinds of ways that people are using idea on campus to answer the questions that are all around us. There's a rich set of data that can be put to use. And so I really appreciate, Daphne, you sharing how Howard is doing that. So thank you again very much.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good day.
Okay, you too.
Okay. Bye-bye.